Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to give you a bunch of spooky book recommendations for the spooky season. Oh my god. So I wanted to make this a list of 10 books because, you know, top 10 lists are easy to do, except it was very easy to narrow it down to 10, so I'm gonna give you guys 15 spooky books. And all these recommendations are books that I have actually read. I wanted to throw some in that I was excited for, but then I was like, you know, I haven't read it, so I can't confirm. So these are books that I have confirmed opinions about and recommendations because they're good and they're spooky and you should read them. So the first book that we're going to be talking about today, so number 15 on the list, is Clown in a Cornfield by Cesare. This book was super fun. It's like it's a slasher, and I've never really seen a slasher like type narrative in a book before. I mean, I'm sure it's been done, but like this is the first time that I can really remember having read it, and it was very enjoyable. It felt like one of those rompy teen flicks, and the body count is high in this one. So if you're looking for a good slasher fun book, it's Clown in a Cornfield. You know, it does have, I will have to say, I rated this 3 out of 5 because it does have the kind of like horror movie cliche of like kind of stock characters who don't really have the best characterization or the best character arcs. You know, they're there to service the story, and the story is a slasher story. So if that sounds like something that's fun and that you'd be into, highly recommend this one. Now, book number 14 is actually kind of, you know, similar to Nightmare Before Christmas, where it can work as both a Halloween-y kind of thing and then also a Christmas type thing, and that is Nosferatu by Joe Hill. If y'all didn't know, Joe Hill is Stephen King's son, but he's a phenomenal author in his own right, you know, apart from the lineage. Nosferatu, I think, is his best book. It deals with Vic McQueen, I think her name is, and her like son as they're dealing with the terror of this man called Charlie Manx. And Charlie Manx is like kind of a vampire of sorts, hence the Nosferatu title. And he steals children and takes them to Christmas Land. A nice and fluffy book. This is not. It is dark, it is brutal, it's intense. There's 2 timelines. You follow Charlie Manx kind of and encounters with Vic when she was a kid, but then also when Vic is an adult and she has a son and Charlie Manx is back. So you kind of get the interweaving of those 2 narratives, and it's very, very good. Highly recommend this if you're a fan of Stephen King, even if you've never read a King book. Like, this book is great. Yeah. Highly recommend Nosferatu by Joe Hill. Now, number 13 on this list is And When the Trees Crept In by, this is the first time I'm saying it aloud, so John Kurtagich. I think that's how you say it. Please don't butcher me if I'm wrong. So I read this book a couple years back, and When the Trees Crept In was a book that really surprised me. It has the, you know, the very kind of typical, you know, haunting, you know, there's like a house in the woods, a manor, and there's like, you know, a girl and her sister, and they move in, I think, with a grandma, and there's this weird like thing that they keep seeing. I think it's very Slender Man-esque in terms of vibes, and there's like a weird boy that they keep seeing. And, you know, I was going into this book expecting a lot of the typical kind of haunting house tropes, and this book turned all of them on its head. I loved the way that this book ended, which is almost kind of rare for me in horror book forms, because, or like horror books, horror movies, like they're usually really good in the atmosphere, and then the end is usually a hit or miss, but the ending to this book was phenomenal. So it's a book I highly recommend. It's very atmospheric, it's very spooky, it sticks the landing. So yeah, that's And When the Trees Crept In. Book number 12 is one that has stayed with me for years and years, and that is Broken Monsters by Lauren Beukes. This book is insane. The main plot follows a detective as she's discovering these kind of like artistic murals of like bodies that are like fused with things. Like, it's bizarre and weird and crazy and just disturbing. And her daughter is like, you know, kind of like an amateur detective of her own, and she's like baiting pedophiles on the internet to try to catch them. So that's a very intense plot line. And then there's this homeless man that's discovering graffiti. Like, there's all these kind of plot lines that are going on, and it's set in the city of Detroit, which is a very unique setting. And I think that this book really captured the feel of Detroit. Like, my mom's from Michigan, so I've been there a couple times, and there's like this kind of je ne sais quoi like vibe, and Broken Monsters captures that Detroit vibe very, very well, and mixes it with this kind of like weird urban horror thing very well. It almost reminds me of Candyman. So if you guys have seen the movie Candyman, the vibe of that movie, like urban like decay and like social issues mixed with like supernatural horror, is very much tied in to this book, Broken Monsters. And yeah, it's phenomenal. It's great. I highly recommend it. And book number 11 is I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Iain Reid. Now, this was a book that I like loved. I tore through it in just a couple of days. It was dark, it was twisted, really messed up, and horror in a way that skews more like existential than like bodily, but this is a chilling book. However, I do have to recommend, don't watch the movie. The movie is awful. And I'm not saying that because I didn't get the movie or whatever. I get it, it was an artsy movie, but it just failed to capture the spirit of the book that I loved so much. So if you've seen the movie and you like loved it, read the book is better. And if you think that the book sounds interesting, read it. It's very good. And then as soon as you finish it, you're gonna wanna turn back to page 1 and start reading it all over again. It's that good. So book number 10 is Hex by Thomas Old Heuvelt, and Nancy Forrest Flyer was the translator. This was I believe it's a German book. And so it's about this town called Black Spring, and this town is very unique because they have a witch. Like, she's just there. She's this kind of creepy ghost witch that everybody knows about. She's just a part of their daily life. The town is cursed, as you know, one is, and it's so like nobody can really ever like leave the town once they move there. So that's problematic and creepy and weird. Anyways, this book was very interesting from the outset because at the very beginning you have these like teenage boys like just kind of like throwing rocks and stuff at the witch, because to them she's just part of like the background scenery. She's not something to really be taken like seriously. She's almost, you know, something to laugh at and make viral videos of, because she has this kind of way of just kind of walking around in like certain patterns, and sometimes she'll just appear in like people's like backyards or like when they're like doing the dishes or something. And so it was weird to have like this from the beginning, the supernatural immediately just tinged with daily life, but then of course it goes awry in the most insane kind of books I've ever read. Like, the climax of this book, like this, or the second half and climax of this book, is something that's so visually striking and insane and dark and crazy, and it just stuck with me. So go read this book. If you like witches, read this book, The Best Witch. If you like creepy towns, this is a very creepy town. If you like spooky atmospheric books that end with lots of blood, this is a perfect book, and that is Hex. So number 9 is a book that I've been a champion of for like forever, ever since I've read it. I will throw it at anybody that I talk to about it, and that is Alice by Christina Henry. This book is so, so good. If you are a fan of fairy tale retellings, this is the best one, with the possible exception of her other one, Lost Boy, which is about Peter Pan and Captain Hook. That one's amazing. But Alice is one of the best books in the horror genre that I've read. It is one of the best fairy tale type books I've ever read. It does a perfect line of walking between fairy tale and horror, and it's beautiful and messed up as all hell, and it's awesome. There is Alice, which is a standalone book, but then it has a follow-up called Red Queen, which just kind of ties up some loose ends that were present at the first book, but you don't need to read it. And then she just released a collection of 3 novellas set in that world. But the only thing you really have to read, which I'm telling you have to read, is Alice. It follows, of course, Alice, but she's not in Wonderland. She's in this place called the Old City, and she is in a mental institution, and the only person that she knows is the person in the cell next to her, who is Hatcher, and so then something happens and they escape, and Alice is going to hunt down the individual who has wronged her, and that is the rabbit. So it is a revenge novel, and let me tell you, that revenge is very rightly deserved. Content warning / trigger warning, this book deals with sexual assault, like mutilation, and yes, I know like a lot of these topics like can be present in other horror novels, but it is a main plot theme for this one, which is why I'm warning you. It doesn't ever get too graphic, but it implies a lot of very disturbing things, and of course, because Alice is our main character and it's her mental state and we are with her as she's trying to get her revenge, it's perfect. It's great. It's messed up, but also if it's too much for you, I understand, because it was a lot for me, but in a way that I could handle, and it's great. Also, like maybe the way I'm making this sound is like it's not like fantasy. It definitely is. It's like dark fantasy. So like there's like really dark horror elements mixed with like magic, and like it's just done so beautifully, and I can't gush about this book anymore because I just need to stop. But Alice is perfect. Number 8 is the classic of all gothic horror classics, and that is, oh my god, I almost said Dracula. I was thinking it's not Dracula. It's not Dracula. Number 8 is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, the classic, the classic gothic novel, the one that, you know, everybody has imitated since. It's so much better. Like if you've seen the movie, if you've, you know, Frankenstein has been in your cultural kind of like imagination, I promise you the book is better than anything you could ever have anticipated. It's like an epistolary book, so it's told through letters, in a way that's just so beautifully written, and it really sucks you into the story. There's something about that kind of format where you're reading somebody else's letters that really just sucks me in. And also like the creature, because it's not Frankenstein. Victor Frankenstein is the doctor. The creature is the creature. The creature is just so beautifully nuanced and makes my heart break. If any of you have seen the show Penny Dreadful, one of my favorite shows of all time, and the only one to accurately like depict Frankenstein's creature, it's amazing, because the creature is not something with like bolts in his neck that grunts and does not speak. The creature is very, very eloquent, and the things that he articulates to Victor about why it is so cruel for him to have been made or to have been brought to life. Those are some of the passages and the quotes and just the feelings that have stayed with me for years and years and years after I finished this book. So this is a classic for a reason, and I highly recommend it to anybody who has not read it. And if you have read it, go read it again. It's just as good. Number 6 is Alice Isn't Dead by Joseph Fink. And yes, I'm aware there's a 2 Alice books on my list, but this one is so good, it had to be here. So Alice Dead follows a queer African-American woman as she hunts across America for her missing girlfriend. She is a trucker, and her girlfriend Alice was presumed dead, but Alice isn't dead. So when she finds evidence of this, she tries to track her down, and along the way she runs into these men things that lurk in like diners and like the forgotten places on the roads between, like, I'm getting chills thinking about it. Like all the forgotten places, these like the yellow man is, because it's all gross and crusty and like I hate thinking about them because they creep me out so much. But this book is full horror. It's Joseph Fink is one of the writers of Welcome to Night Vale. So you may be thinking going in, if you know Welcome to Night Vale, that this has kind of like a satirical, kind of like the humor, like black humor tone that Night Vale usually takes. No, this is serious. This is straight up like horror. And there are some really horrifying, intense sequences in this. And it's so good. The narrative is very well written. Joseph Fink has some of the best prose. Like it just, like there are so many like moments where it's like quietly beautiful. And yeah, I just highly recommend this book. This book was phenomenal. And if it sounds something cool that like you would like, pick it up because it's very great. It's very great. And this is also an adaptation of the podcast of the same name. It roughly follows it, but it does have some changes, so they are kind of their own separate things. So if you have listened to the Alice Isn't Dead podcast, this is similar but not one-to-one, so you can still enjoy it as its own thing. And if you have finished the book and you want kind of more of this, the podcast is also great. So that's Alice Isn't Dead. Number 5 is God in the Shed by J.F. Dubeau. Let me tell you, this book is so good, and I'm so mad because this sequel has been like supposed to have been coming out for years now, and it's supposedly coming in January or February, but it was supposed to come out January, February of last year, and then the year before that, and the year so I don't know when we're gonna get a sequel to this, but I'm still recommending it because this book is so good. So, you know, this book, like many others, takes place in a small town, and we follow both the teens and the adults in the town. And so I'm trying to think of a way how to describe this without giving too much away. But so the title is not figurative. I'll just say that. Basically, this girl, she finds this thing in the woods, and it becomes trapped in her shed. And this book is horrifying. It is extremely atmospheric. One of the most tangible kind of like wrong feelings like in a town that like I've read in a book. Also, like I just know I love these. The little riffled pages, it'll get me every time. But yeah, I can't say a lot about this book without giving a lot away, but I just want to say that this book is one of the best horror books I have ever read. I've seen literally nobody talk about it, but this book is so good. So highly recommend A God in the Shed, and then you too can be anxiously awaiting a sequel that will probably arrive, maybe. Number 4 is The Troop by Nick Cutter. Took me a second to remember his name. So The Troop follows a troop of like scouts as they are going for a camp out on this little island. Brief bit of background, I was in Boy Scouts. I am an Eagle Scout, because that's like for life. And I worked really hard for that. It helped me get into college, thank God. And so these boys are camping on an island, and this man, you know, running away from, he shows up kind of like in a boat and like dies on the shore. And as you probably suspect, there was something wrong with the man. Chaos ensues. Because I don't want to give away spoilers, because this book is just so damn good. It's one of the grossest books I've read. So if you are not a fan of body horror, do not read this book. This book, like, I'm a horror fan. I love horror movies and horror books, etc., etc. There were so many moments where I had to put the book down and like purge my brain of the images, because it was just too much. But the best way I can describe this book is kind of like Lord of the Flies meets more horror. Because I don't want to give it away. I do not want to give it away. But it's extremely well written. And the thing that also I loved about this book that I did not expect was the characters. I did not expect to care about the characters as much as I did. Because usually when you have like kids, boys, teens, you know, they usually become pretty stereotypical. But these boys never did. They never really fit into one category. They didn't really fit into the stereotypes. I mean, they did at times, but then they grew beyond that in really kind of touching ways. Like, this book almost made me emotional at times. And it was just very, very well written. The characterization was so good. And yeah, I highly, highly recommend this book. Book number 3 is the extremely classic, The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. And yes, I did watch the show first. I'm sorry, I apologize. This is a book, you know, that's been on my radar for a while, and Shirley Jackson, you know, I had to read The Lottery in school, and it was good. It's like a good short story, but the thing is, I think it's overtaught. Almost like the analysis. And now I can't say that word. But honestly, I feel like The Haunting of Hill House should be taught in place of The Lottery, because there's so much in this book. And the thing is, it's almost like a novella. Like, it's very, very short. It's not a very long book. And if you have seen the Netflix show, it's very, very different from that. The show takes a lot of elements and characters and kind of things from the book and then like remixes it. It's a very loose adaptation. It's a great adaptation. It's perfect. I love Haunting of Hill House, the show, but the book is so good. And there's a pretty good adaptation, a movie called The Haunting, which is good, but the atmosphere in the book is something that I don't think can really be captured on film. It has to be read. It has to be absorbed into your skin. The words and the characters and the events, the haunting. It chills me to this day. And it's not your typical ghost story, I'll say that. It's good. It's very good. So go read it. I know I'm telling you to go read a lot of things. Just add it to your TBR and then come back to it in October. Or if you're like in a spooky mood, if there's mist outside, if it's a thunderstorm, you're like, hey, there's that book that Blake mentioned. Let me go pick it up. Because that's the spooky mood. Book number 2 on the list, we're almost done, is The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay. Now, this is one of the distinguished books that I have finished in one sitting. This book was so intense, I could not move until I finished it. And it chilled me to the bone. And I know I said that already about some of the other books, but like this one, if you have seen Hereditary, you know the vibes of this book. So be ready. The Cabin at the End of the World has fantastic casual gay representation. The two main characters, the two main adult characters are like they're two dads, and they are celebrating the birthday of their adopted daughter Wen at this little cabin in the woods. nothing horror is gonna happen. And as their daughter Wen is playing outside, a man approaches her and says that her fathers are going to have to make a choice. And then his 3 companions show up behind him. And they claim to be the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And yeah, this is a home invasion type novel. So like if Clown at a Cornfield is like the slasher novel, this is like the home invasion novel. And it is so intense. It is so good and insane, and I have been thinking about this book nonstop since I read it, and that is 100% due to Paul Tremblay's credit. He's a great author. I've read some of his other horror books, and those are also great as well, but this one just sticks with me, still does, and yeah, you should read this one. And the last one, the number 1 spookiest book on this spooky list, is Penpal by Dathan Auerbach. So Penpal is the single most disturbing book that I have ever read in my entire life. I get chills thinking about this book. I'm getting goosebumps now thinking about this book. Books don't really scare me. And I know I've said that I've been like chilled to the bone or like disturbed, by books on this list. And that's like in certain moments, in certain scenes. But, I don't get nightmares, really, ever. I think the last time I got a nightmare from reading a book was when I read It by Stephen King in 6th grade, and then I had some clown nightmares. But beyond that, I've gotten over, I'm very used to horror. I watch horror movies a lot. I read horror books fairly frequently. And this book did what no other book has managed to make me do in a long time, and it made me afraid. So this is a creepypasta. If you guys don't know what creepypastas is, they're kind of very chilling short stories that are posted up to the internet, usually on Reddit. And Penpal was actually a bunch of different posts on the forums by this author, Dathan Auerbach, before being kind of taken and adapted into the book. And so it's almost like each chapter, feels like it's its own little short story. And, they're very chilling and disturbing and messed up. And but altogether, their impact is so strong. Some of the stories by themselves are amazing and good. Some of them are not quite as good as the others, but because it's all told from the perspective of an adult. So it's a memoir to a degree, a fictional one, thank God. And the fact that the narrator survives should provide a sense of comfort, but it didn't. Not in this book. Oh my God. There were, I know I'm just kind of talking about how this book made me feel, but I think that's better than almost talking about the book's plot itself. I mean, the book's plot, it's about it follows the author, the narrator, when he's a child. And he moves houses, but before they move, there's things that go on. And the main inciting incident, or how this book starts, the Penpal, is that his class decides that they're going to make pen pals by attaching notes to balloons and sending them off, and then seeing if they get a reply, and then they have a pen pal. So our narrator, I'm getting, sorry guys, I'm getting scared. I'm getting chills thinking about it right now. This book has traumatized me. he never hears back from his balloon, but he starts getting pictures in the mail that are just random pictures, and then at one point his mom freaks out, and then it's because he understands that all the pictures, you know, have him in it. It's not like a picture of him like right in the face, but like he's in the background, and so yeah, that'll just give you a hint as to what this book is like. Terrifying. And I know I'm rambling about this book, but I think that's the best way to describe it, because damn. So Penpal by Dathan Auerbach is my #1 spooky book. My highest recommendation if you want maximum spook. Anyways, guys, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed me rambling about spooky season and about these horror books that are some of my faves. There were a lot of horror books that I'm excited about, that I want to read, that I wanted to mention, but I haven't actually got around to reading yet. So if you guys want a list of some of my scary book recommendations like that I'm going to read, leave a comment down below and I might shoot some of the titles that I'm really excited about at you. Give a thumbs up if you liked this video, and don't forget to subscribe if you want more of this content. I have some really cool book reviews coming up in the near future, as well as I'm going to do a reading vlog for a title that I am very, very excited for, and if you have been watching this channel, you probably know which one it is. So yeah, I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.